What's up, guys? This is Chris here from East Coast PC, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be taking apart my RTX 3080 Gigabyte Gaming OC Edition, and we're going to be replacing the thermal pads on the memory chips, the MOSFETs, and on, I had bought some that go between the back of the PCB and the back plate. I didn't end up doing those, so technically I'm reshooting the intro scene because the intro to the video that we've already filmed got messed up. So we wanted to redo that and identify all the parts and stuff that we were going to be using and tell y'all a little bit about why we're doing this video. So I am not a crypto miner by any stretch of the means. I am a PC enthusiast. I like to play games. I just live, eat, sleep, and breathe computers all the time. And but I have discovered I've had so many high-end cards for years, 2080 Ti's, 1080 Ti's, now the 3080, working on getting the 30, now my hands on a 3090 right now. And Ethereum mining had got so profitable. I had been against mining for so many years, and I kind of just felt like, okay, the joke's kind of on me now because I work so many hours, or I have been lately at my night job. I've been working 60 hours a week, and by the time I drive there, drive home, I basically have no time left during the week to do much computer work. Well, my graphics cards are just sitting there, so I decided, since I have these high-end cards that can make a very good amount of money mining Ethereum, I was going to start letting my cards mine Ethereum while I was at work when I wasn't using my computer. Well, the only issue was that when I started mining on my RTX 3080, the Gigabyte Gaming OC Edition, the memory temperatures went totally out of control. So the TJ max temperature, which is the hottest part, basically the middle of the memory chip, is the junction of the memory chip. The maximum rated temperature for the junction for the GDDR6X memory chips are 100C. Now, when DDR6X first came out, there was a thing on Micron's page that said operating temperature all the way down to -40, all the way up to 110C. That has since been removed, and the only thing that's up there now in the official specifications are a T-case temperature that is supposed to go no higher than 95C, which is basically the best way to explain that is basically an everyday operating temperature, and the T-junction max temperature is 100C, which is in the middle of the memory chips. Well, the issue there is these memory chips on none of these NVIDIA RTX 3080s and 3090s, they will not throttle into 110C. And I don't care what nobody tells you out there. I don't have no scientific data or anything like that, but I can tell you 110 degrees Celsius might not hurt these chips for just a little while, but it is absolutely not good to run 110C all the time, 24/7, mining Ethereum or doing any kind of video rendering around the clock or anything like that. It is absolutely, and video rendering and looping some 4K games can get it in the 100-degree range sometimes. So it's still worth changing these pads out, even if you aren't mining Ethereum. If you are mining Ethereum on the side like I am, or if you do it every day as a profession, I generally don't support that. But if you are just using your hardware to mine Ethereum, or if you're building mining rigs, whatever you may be doing, we definitely want to take something like these. These are the Thermalright Odyssey thermal pads. Now we have the 3mm. They were the ones that were supposed to go in between the back of the PCB and the back plate. I didn't install those. I ran out of time. But what I did use is I used another pack. This is a brand new pack, but I used one whole pack of 2mm pads for the actual memory chips themselves, and I used the 1mm. They go over the MOSFETs. So what I will tell you guys is that I'm going to go through this video. I've got the rest of it recorded, and we're going to show y'all how I did it, give y'all a good example of how easy or how hard it is to do. I definitely recommend doing it. It is kind of a time consuming and somewhat of a tedious process, but it's definitely worth it. I dropped my temps from anywhere from 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. So now I'm maxing out. The maximum that my chip ever hit, that any of the memory chips hit, was 88 degrees Celsius. And that's with a very warm house. With a cool house, you're staying in the high 70s and low 80s. So that is what I consider a safe temperature for these chips to operate all the time around the clock. And I can't tell anybody how to use their hardware, but what I can do is elaborate on years of computer knowledge. And I can tell you that if junction temperature max is 100 degrees Celsius. It's definitely not good for your hardware to run it at 110 degrees Celsius long term. It will throttle your performance down also. And one thing, even if it doesn't, you know, brick the card or kill the card immediately, I can almost guarantee that the degradation of your hardware, say that card would have lasted 5 years, well, you can best count on it, it's going to have a lot shorter life if it's running at them high temperatures. So anyway, what we're using here, guys, is some rubbing alcohol. That is going to be to clean the thermal paste off of the GPU itself. You always want to use 91% or higher rubbing alcohol. We have our iFixit Mako driver kit. That's going to be used to take apart the graphics card itself, and I've already showed y'all the thermal pads here. These are some expensive thermal pads. They are just about the best you could get. The only thing that you can get better that I've seen on Amazon is the Fuji Polys, but they do not come in the higher 3mm size, and I don't even think they make them in 2mm. I think the thickest they make Fuji Poly is 1.5. So these have a thermal transfer rate of 12.7 watts per meter Kelvin, which is very high. These are average for between the 1 and the 3s, just average about $20 a pack. That is expensive. One 2mm pack will do the memory chips themselves, and one 1mm pack will do the MOSFETs. You don't have to do those, but since you already got the card apart, it definitely didn't hurt to do it. One thing I will tell you, these Gigabyte cards, they have the worst thermal pads I've ever seen. They literally leaked oil all over the front of this GPU. So when I took this GPU out of my computer, it literally had oil running all along the fan shroud. Oil, just straight up oil that had ran out of the thermal pads onto the graphics card. I have never seen that happen in none of my personal cards. I have seen other people with these Gigabyte cards. I don't know about other manufacturers. I do know that most manufacturers don't use great thermal pads from the factory, but I would have to say that this Gigabyte card has the worst thermal pads on it I've ever seen, and it's kind of sad because otherwise it seems to be a pretty good card otherwise. But anyway, guys, that's about it for this intro. If there's anybody that has not got subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, comment, do all that good YouTube stuff. We appreciate each and every one of y'all, and we appreciate everybody who has already been subscribed and been supporting the channel since day one. So thank all of y'all so much, and without further to talk about here, let's get started. All right, guys, so one thing I did want to show y'all real quick before we get zoomed in on the graphics card and get started. One tool that I recommend all of you get if you're going to be doing this at home is a digital caliper. Now, what we're going to be doing with that, we're going to measure exactly how thick these thermal pads are to make sure that we're putting the right size thermal pads on there. This one was $8.99 from Amazon. It's not no high-end one. It was one of the cheapest ones, if not the cheapest one that they had. I'll probably be getting a better one later on, but it should definitely do the job for me and doing what we're doing. And if you guys need to buy one, they got them available on Amazon for $8.99. I highly recommend you do this, and the reason why is because I've watched 3 different videos on people changing the thermal pads on this graphics card, and they all told me different size thermal pads. So from what I can tell, the thermal pads that you really need on the back plate are between 2 and 3 millimeters. Now they're basically non-existent. You can either get 2 or 3. So it's always better, it seems to always be better to use a little bit thicker of a thermal pad on something like a back plate, because you can just put a little bit more pressure and squish it down just a tiny bit. Shouldn't require much more pressure, but if they're not thick enough, period, they're just not going to make contact. But always be careful with that. Especially on the other side with your memory chips and all, you always want to make sure your pads are thick enough, but you don't want them to be too thick either. So that's what we're going to be doing with the caliper, and I advise each and every one of y'all to do that for your graphics card as well, because don't trust what people are telling you unless you know for a fact that they're right and they have measured these thermal pads, because you could potentially harm your hardware by not having the right size thermal pads up there. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and take this thing apart. Some of this video is probably going to get edited out, bits and pieces of it, because I'm shooting this the best way I can as far as getting what we're doing here. I want you guys to be able to see everything the best you can. So anyway, I'm going to be flipping this card up when we get it disconnected from the back plate here and showing y'all exactly what's going on. But I'm going to start taking it apart, and what we're using is a Phillips number 0 bit to take this back plate off. So that's what you will need, a number 0 Phillips bit to take this back plate here off. All RTX 3080s are going to be different, so you never know which one you're going to need for what card. And we are going to be placing the screws exactly where they come out on this card. That way there's no way that we can get them mixed up. I say that, but I will probably still find a way to get them mixed up. Even though I'm doing this preventative measure here. I tend to do stuff like that from time to time. And guys, one thing I will also elaborate on is, like I said earlier, these memory chips will not throttle until you get to 110 degrees Celsius. And in my opinion, that is just extremely too hot. And that's also, I can almost guarantee you, that's why the RTX 3090 uses 21 gigabits per second GDDR6X memory, which is excellent top of the line memory. But the memory modules on, I think, just about every single RTX 3090 are clocked at 19.5 gigabits per second. That was disappointing to me, and the reason why is, like I said, I can almost guarantee you, because they just get too hot. NVIDIA still should have thermally throttled these chips at 100 degrees, which is the T-junction max temperature for GDDR6X. One thing I will say, there's a lot of confusion online. When these chips first came out, these graphics cards first came out, they did say online that the total operating temperature was, I think, from minus 40°C all the way up to 110°C. That has since been removed. It is no longer there. Now there's just a T case 0 to 95°C, and max junction is 100°C. That's all that's there. They have removed that. I've seen pictures of it online where it was there, but it is no longer there, probably because they don't want to be liable. It is not safe for long-term use, and that's why we're doing what we're doing today, guys. I hope this video helps a lot of people, and I also hope that it guides you, and maybe I can guide you and help your purchasing decision and buying the best thermal pads that you can buy, because it is confusing. There's so many different kinds of thermal pads. They range in quality from not very good to really good. These are some very expensive thermal pads. I'm not saying you definitely don't have to have the very best. Even some mid-grade ones would be better than these things that's on here. I just can't believe I paid, I won the Newegg Shuffle and got the opportunity to buy this card. And I paid $1,079 for the card, but I also had to buy a motherboard with it. So basically almost $1,100 before tax, and the thermal pads they put on it are just about the crappiest. I've just never seen nothing this sorry. And I will tell you, I wiped it off. I do have a picture on my phone. I might try to throw it up in the video, but it literally leaked oil from these thermal pads all over the front of my card. So when I took this out of my system, there was literally oil, like a lot of oil all over the front of the fans of this graphics card. And I never ran it over 100 degrees for more than a few minutes because I'm just not safe with doing that. I'd rather be safe than sorry. So yeah, I've also never seen graphics cards leak that kind of oil. After I went back and looked at it, it seems that a lot of the Gigabyte cards from the Pascal era also did that. So I don't know about other brands in the oil. I do know that other brands are also very not very good as far as the thermal pads go from the factory. These cards are not made for mining, of course, and that's probably the argument that the manufacturers will say. You know, they're not made for mining. If you weren't mining with them, it wouldn't get that hot. And that's partially true, but also rendering 4K and 8K video, doing a lot of long-term benchmarks can get them very, very hot. I've seen, especially the Founders Edition 3080s, get well over 100, 104, 106 degrees. I've seen a lot of proof of that online just from rendering and doing all kinds of tasks. That is not mine. And so they still get very hot, way too hot for my comfort, and hotter than I recommend, even if you're not mining in some scenarios. So either way, even if you're not mining on the side, like I'm trying to do to make up some of this expense that we're paying for all this hardware these days, even if you're not doing that, I still recommend changing these thermal pads. If you're doing a lot of 4K video rendering and all that good stuff, one thing I definitely recommend doing, guys, is downloading Hardware Info 64 if you do not have it. And on the 30 series, it will give you a readout of the maximum GDDR6X junction temperature, which is the hottest spot or the hottest junction temperature of any of those chips. It don't mean every single one of the chips are that hot. They're probably all close to that, but it will give you a it will tell you exactly how hot they are. The only issue is, like I said, it will not thermal throttle until you get to 110 degrees Celsius, no matter what, even though the TJ Maxx junction temperature is 100 degrees Celsius, which is just crazy to me. It should throttle at it should keep it under 100, not 110. But anyway, I think I got all the screws here out of the back plate, guys. Let's see. Yeah. So all of these screws seem to be removed. What I did, guys, is I removed the outside ones first, and then I got the 4 right here. These are the retention screws right here. These 4 right here. That's what actually puts the retention and the pressure on the GPU. That's what holds that in. So now that that's out, we're going to try to pull this thing apart, guys. Let's see. Okay, and just like that, that is came off. Now here's the hard part, guys. Now we have to get, that's what it looks like when it's apart, when it's still hooked up via the fans are still connected, and that's the problem right here, guys. The fans are connected. So what we're going to do, I'm going to flip this thing around, and we're going to try to go ahead and get these fans disconnected. All right, guys, so we are back, and this little fan header right here was the culprit. It was an absolute nightmare. I will hold it up so y'all can see the little fan cable there. It was a nightmare to get off. I don't think I've ever had a fan cable from any GPU or any computer part be that hard to get off. The thing is, it looks like it has 2 little pins in the side of it, but the only thing that really matters is the center part of it. So once you get it pulled up a little bit, if you'll take a flathead screwdriver and just put a lot of pressure right on the center, the thing will pop right out. I wasted a lot of time tugging on it and trying to get it out without pulling the fan header from the PCB. Anyway, it just really sucked getting it off. So after you get that fan header off, hopefully the rest of this modification to this graphics card won't be that hard. So one thing I want to show you guys is I'm gonna hold this card up just like this right here. Hopefully y'all can see it on camera really good. I don't know if y'all can see the oil. That's what I'm trying to show you guys. The oil. There is so much oil on the memory chips from these crappy thermal pads. I don't know if I've ever seen no oil like this, at least not to this extent on any electronic products. This is just absolutely insane, guys. There's so much oil that has leaked out of these thermal pads, because apparently these extremely cheap thermal pads, when they get really hot, apparently the cheap ones are full of oil or something, but there's just oil coated all over the memory chips. And we are going to try to get this thermal pad here off without damaging it whatsoever. Okay. Now that we got that thermal pad off, that's what she, sorry guys. That's what she looks like right there. Just a gray pad that's full of oil. I've never seen no shit like this in my life. But what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take this caliper here, and I'm gonna try to measure exactly how thick this pad is. I've been told by other people online it's 2 millimeter. Only issue is they stretch out a little bit and all that good stuff. So There's no good way for me to show you this exactly, but yeah. Anyway, so yes, it appears to be exactly 1.9, 2 millimeters. Yeah. Yep, 2 millimeter thermal pads. Okay, we'll do that other end there just to make sure. Yep, 2 millimeter, guys. So that was correct. 2 millimeter thermal pads for the ones that are going on the memory chips themselves. I'm gonna set those over there because I'm gonna try to save these thermal pads in case I ever need to put these back on here, like for a warranty claim or something like that. I don't know. We do have right to repair laws here in America, guys. I don't know exactly how much you can do. I've been listening to guys like Gamers Nexus a lot. I think MKB, I don't watch his channel. Basically, I don't ever watch his channel, but I did see that he had a video about right to repair. And I know that you can repaste your card. I don't know about the thermal pads. You definitely should be able to take them off and replace them, as shitty as they are. That's for damn sure. So let's see the best way to do this, guys. And like I said, I'm gonna edit some of this video out. I don't know what's gonna be in here and what's not, guys. This is basic. It's not nothing you can just do perfect the first try, especially if you're not used to changing thermal pads. And I'm not used to changing thermal pads. I got to be the first one to admit that. Let's see here. All right, the good news is, guys, that is all of the thermal pads stuck on top of my new thermal pad with the plastic in between it. So one of these 2 millimeter pads is definitely enough. That's good news. By the way, these are the thermal, where's my box? These are the Thermal Right Extreme Odyssey thermal pad. This is the 2 millimeters. That's what you need for the GPU VRAM modules themselves. It's the 2 millimeter, and this is the 80 by 45 size, and that's one of them is definitely enough. All right, guys, and I'll show you. I don't know how well you can see it, but there's little boxes, basically little corners that guide you on where to put these thermal pads. They're probably made more for internal use for Gigabyte more than they are for somebody replacing the thermal pads. I'm sure they don't love for people to do this, even if it doesn't void the warranty. I cannot speak on that for sure. I know that you can replace the thermal paste, but I can't say for sure about the warranty. So yeah, so anyway, we're going to start with the little 3-piece here that covers 3 of the memory modules. Then we'll do our little 1-piece. I don't know why this 1-piece would, it's almost like it is smaller than it needs to be almost. Alright guys, so the thermal pads are back on. We got the one covering the 1 chip, the 3 chips, and the 4 chips on both sides. So that part is done. All right, guys, we are back. And now, quick tip. You know, I had intentions on replacing the pads on the memory chips, all the 1mm pads on the MOSFETs and all that good stuff, and doing the 3mm pads in between the back of the PCB and the back plate. We are out of time for today, so I have changed all of I'm about to show y'all in just a second. I've changed all of the thermal pads on the memory chips, and I've changed all of the thermal pads, the 1mm thermal pads that are on the MOSFETs and all of that good stuff. So all of that has been completely changed. Quick tip though, guys, if I were you, I would probably leave just the factory pads that come on the MOSFETs. They shouldn't be getting too hot. I don't know exactly how hot they're getting, but it's good to change them, but they were really aggravating. The 1mm pads are very thin and finicky. So the main thing is, guys, I would just recommend changing the 2mm pads on the memory chips themselves. I would I would add thermal pads in between the back of the PCB and the back plate if I had time, but we don't have time to do that today. So I think this will take care of most of our temperature issues. So we're just going to see what this gives us. We're going to roll with this for today. So here is our final look at the outcome of what we got, guys. There is all of the thermal pads replaced, and that is Cryonaut Extreme thermal paste on the GPU itself. So that's what we look like, guys. We should be getting some excellent results here. That's our final look at the GPU die and all the new thermal pads we put on there. And anyway, guys, that's going to about wrap this video up. Thank each and every one of y'all for watching this video. If there's anybody who isn't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Drop a like, comment, do all that good YouTube stuff. We appreciate everybody that supported us this far. And thanks everybody again. We'll see y'all soon.